We have replaced the tooth number 9 with a prepared tooth. The marginal outline extends all the way around the tooth from the labial to the lingual surfaces, including the proximal surfaces. For demonstration purposes, we will outline the margins of the tooth with a darker colored wax and use tooth-colored wax to complete the wax-up of the coronal portion. To make sure that the wax does not drip off the tooth, we must first apply a thin layer of sticky wax over the entire surface of the tooth that will be receiving wax while leaving the margin completely exposed. Using a P.K. Thomas number 2, apply the sticky wax in the same manner used with conventional wax. Outline the margin using conventional wax. Don't worry too much about going over the margin with the wax. Remember, you can always carve it back down once the wax is hardened. Use the P.K. number 4 to carve the margins back before continuing with the wax-up. When the margins are completed, you should have achieved zero emergence profile. The finished margin should be one smooth line that continues from the root into the anatomical coronal portion of the tooth. There should be no step or discontinuation between the wax and the tooth. The next step is to wax the entire coronal portion of the tooth, beginning with the labial surface of the tooth from one proximal to the other. Use the P.K. number 1 to apply wax to the surface. In order to allow the wax to dry, alternate between the distal and mesial surfaces. Remember that the aim in this step is simply to fill the entire coronal area with wax. Excess wax can always be removed during the carving stage. Once enough wax has been placed and allowed to cool, use the P.K. number 4 to begin carving the wax. During carving, our aim is to establish aesthetic value in both the length of the tooth and the overall labial appearance. Begin by finishing the margins and the labial contour of the tooth. If necessary, use the P.K. number 2 to add more wax in small amounts and continue carving. To move around any of the wax that has already been applied, heat up the number 1 or number 2 instruments and simply touch it to the wax and reposition it. When you are satisfied with the shape and form of the surfaces, take a moment to evaluate the functional value. The key at this stage is to establish the length by placing both halves of the model in the protrusive position, where both centrals are touching at the same time. Be sure also to check the vertical stop on the lingual surface of the anterior teeth. In the incisal guidance, the two centrals should provide the protrusive guidance for the mandible. Continue finishing the teeth until both aesthetic and functional value have been established. When the tooth is completely finished, evaluate the overall aesthetic and functional value of the tooth. First, check that the mesial marginal line angle aligns with that of number 8. Likewise, the distal marginal ridge of number 9 should mirror that of number 8. Contact areas on both sides should be symmetrical. Again, determine the length of the incisal edge utilizing the protrusive movement. In the clinic, the dentist establishes length by both phonetics and by the lip line. The alignment of the interior teeth should be parallel to the line of the lower lip when the patient is smiling. Verify that number 9 and number 10 come into occlusal contact, and check that the tooth is aligned with the adjacent teeth from both the distal and mesial line angles. Lastly, check alignment from the incisal edge.